Welcome to Bellingham Voices. I'm Marie Marchand, your host. Today's guests are Laura Harker and Barbara Mathers-Schmidt. Laura is the Executive Director of the Interfaith Coalition, and Barbara is a member of the Interfaith Coalition Board of Directors. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you.
Laura, tell us about the history of the Interfaith Coalition.
Well, actually, this is an exciting year. This is our 35th anniversary. Mm-hmm. So Interfaith Coalition began in 1981, and at that time there was a recession going on, and there were massive cutbacks to social services. And so there were more people in need, and the idea came of bringing together diverse congregations in Whatcom County to look at if we can pool resources, can we help meet some of the biggest needs during that time? Mm-hmm. And at that time, back there in the early 80s, the biggest need in our community was the access to health care for low-income people. And so Interfaith Coalition worked with Opportunity Council and the Medical Society in trying to put together a referral network where physicians could see patients. And over the years, that grew into Interfaith Community Health Center, which is a vibrant health center in the community that provides medical, dental, and behavioral health care to many people in our community.
Mm-hmm. And they recently have kind of separated from you and become Unity Care Northwest. Is that right?
They have. They've grown up and they're doing very, very well. Actually, serving thousands of patients every year. And for about the last 20 years, Interfaith Coalition really has put our focus into helping homeless families. And so that has been where our biggest efforts has been over the last 20 years, and especially recently.
Mm-hmm. So you are growing in staff, and you're just having new programs start, and so you're still vibrant, and even without the health center, you're still serving a need in the community, especially, as you say, with the homeless families.
Right,
mm-hmm.
right.
And Barbara, what led you to join the board of directors?
In 1991, my husband and I moved to Bellingham with our young children, and we went to an auction for the Interfaith Council early on and learned about the needs of people in this community. So it was not just the healthcare needs, but food and shelter for many young families, and we became concerned about that. And I was very impressed with the Interfaith organization and really appreciate how faith communities can be so effective working together, tapping into the skills and passion of the people in those communities. And so I became very interested in joining Interfaith and have supported it over the years. And when I retired last year, that was one of the first things I did, was to get on the board.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. What's the mission of the Interfaith Coalition?
Well, the basic mission is to pool the resources to meet the greatest needs in our community, with the emphasis on housing for families, and also to address local poverty issues.
Mm-hmm. And something that I hope the listeners will gain from today is our conversation about how you're involved in housing, because some people don't associate the Interfaith Coalition with housing for homeless. Right. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Right. So we currently have 11 units of housing for children and their parents. And we have both a combination of transitional housing, which is a longer term for a year or so for families, and then also short-term emergency housing for families. And one of the really unique features about the housing that Interfaith Coalition has is that they all are, single-family units. And so they can really try to help address families that would be broken up in the traditional shelter model. So we give priority to families that are with two parents, or maybe headed up with a dad, or with teen boys over the age 12, which again would be broken up into in the traditional shelter. Mm-hmm. So we have we have some units that we own, and then also there are 3 of our units are actually homes that are owned by congregations that are part of Interfaith Coalition, that are providing their mission and service work by allowing families to stay in their homes.
Mm-hmm. How many member organizations do you have?
There's 44 congregations throughout Whatcom County, quite a diverse network of faith communities, and and actually one of the early mottos of Interfaith Coalition was, we may not believe alike, but we can love alike. And so it's really a focus not on the diversity of our beliefs, but of how we can serve our neighbors.
That's beautiful. And it's not ecumenical, because ecumenical means within a Christian faith, there's different denominations. That's what ecumenical is. But it's truly interfaith, because the synagogue is part of it, and other religions other than Christianity. Is that correct?
Right.
Wonderful. You have a program called CAST. Does that stand for Coffee and Sandwiches on Tuesday?
Well, and that's how it began.
Okay.
But now it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. But we've still kept that name, and it's a great program. It actually began at one of the congregations, Faith Lutheran Church, which is one of the members of Interfaith Coalition, over 10 years ago, and it just expanded, and about a year ago became under the umbrella of Interfaith Coalition. And it's a simple food outreach program. There's actually over 100 volunteers that 4 nights a week make sandwiches and soup and coffee, and then they're distributed in the parking lot of Opportunity Council 4 nights a week.
Okay, at the end of Cornwall there?
Right.
Oh, wonderful.
Right.
How can people volunteer for CAST if they want to?
Well, just to contact Interfaith Coalition, our phone number is 360-734-3983. They can check out our website, and we've got lots of information on other ways people can volunteer in addition to the CAST program. We really are a volunteer-based organization. We have quite a small staff. Well, there's 5 people, only 2 of us are full-time. So we really rely on volunteers from our community, and not just faith communities. We welcome any volunteers that wish to participate in our programs.
Wonderful. Barbara, you're a member of a partner congregation, is that right?
Yes, the First Congregational Church.
And you have an important and exciting project that's underway. Can you talk about the Love and Justice space?
Oh, sure. I'm not directly involved, but I'm very excited about it. They're wonderful people, have put a lot of time and effort into determining how we would best use the space that's underneath our sanctuary. So we have over 5,000 square feet of unfinished space. And we've been thinking about this for many years, of how we might best use that once we can get up the energy and enthusiasm for really the capital campaign that it will take to finish that space. And one of the big commitments is to the Northwest Youth Services. And we're very excited that the congregation passed a resolution to develop much of that space to serve the needs of the Northwest Youth Services, and particularly for some space that people of the LGBTQ community could utilize during the day. And so we'll finish it. We're still looking at the details. I guess it's best to stop there. We're looking at the details of how to develop the space, and we're very excited about providing access for particularly the 18 to 24-year-old group of people who have no place to go. And the director, Rhiannon Bardsley, she was on our show last year talking about her history with the Northwest Youth Services organization, and she does a great job there. She's
talk about
phenomenal.
Great leadership.
Yes.
Young leadership. And both of you might want to answer this, either one, but I'm wondering, in your work with homeless, what you found to be the biggest barrier for them in getting housing?
Well, there's so many reasons that people become homeless, and one of the biggest challenges that we have working with family is finding affordable housing. Rents are high, and then especially if you have barriers, if you've had maybe a challenging credit history, if you potentially maybe were evicted, just even your ability of finding an apartment to rent is very, very difficult. And the vacancy rate in Bellingham, I think it's less than 1%. You know, so that is certainly one of the very, very challenging things that we find working with families, is even when everything else is going very, very well with them, you know, they've maybe found employment, have increased their income, still that ability to find an apartment that they can afford and rent is very, very challenging.
You know, I think one of the shocking things for me, once I got into putting some energy into learning about homelessness, is how quickly people can fall into homelessness and how many lives it touches. And so we interviewed a young woman 2 years ago who one day was working on a degree at a community college, had a home, and 3 or 4 young daughters that she was supporting, and became ill and had some marital problems, and practically overnight became homeless and lived for 6 months in a vehicle with her daughters, trying to keep a family life going. It's remarkable, shocking, troubling how quickly people can fall into homelessness and how many people are like that in this community.
Right, and then trying to get out of that situation, you know, with trying to come up with a rental deposit and security, you know, deposit, and then finding a landlord that can rent to you in such a challenging rental environment can be very, very difficult.
Yes.
I used to run a homeless shelter in another city. I did that for 3.5 years, and I remember that we would ask the city for money, and each year they gave us $3,000, and we were grateful for that. But then I came up here to work in Bellingham for the city, and they give so much money to so many different organizations like Northwest Youth Services, like the Opportunity Council, and even have provided some funding to Interfaith Coalition for their housing. And I'm really proud of that our city leaders, Mayor Kelly Linville and the City Council, are concerned about homelessness, that they recognize that our budget needs to reflect that commitment to ending homelessness. And as you may know, the mayor a few months ago wrote a letter to the governor asking him to declare a state of emergency regarding homelessness statewide so that more federal funds could come through to the cities to help us. But in addition to that, the City Council and the Mayor, they've created programs like the Community Paramedic Program. They're funding the programs at WAHA called Intensive Case Management for Homeless Outreach, and they're involved in spending money on building new affordable housing for low income. And one of the things that I've done is they invited me to be part of a team to go talk to congregations. And it was kind of twofold. It was to do an inventory of what's currently being done by congregations, but it was also to invite them to assess their capacity to do more. And one thing is that they're interested in is a tiny homes village. So we have quite a few congregations that want to move forward with that, and that would be housing 20 to 40 people a year. And also the city is partnering with another organization to look into a low barrier shelter, which would have 200 beds each night. And this is partly with the goal of lessening the people who are living in illegal encampments that are dangerous along the rivers, to try to get as many people as possible to get into housing. So that's why they're interested in a variety of tactics, because not everybody wants to live in a shelter, or not everybody wants to live in their own apartment, perhaps. You know, some might embrace communal living more and would like a shelter for that purpose. One thing I definitely wanted to get some information on and share with the people watching is a new emerging program that we have. And Barbara, I don't know if you wanted to start talking about Family Promise.
Yes, we're very excited about Family Promise. This is a model of providing shelter and support for homeless families using property that already exists, and that's the faith community property. So we became aware of this in the fall of 2015, or started exploring it in the fall of 2015. Family Promise started in New Jersey in the mid-'80s, where Karen Olson, just a community member, became aware of the needs of homeless families and tapped into the resources that already existed in faith communities and set up a program where you use space in the different faith communities to house homeless families. And so that's what we're looking into. And what this involves now, it's emerged into a nationwide affiliate program. There are over 200 affiliates that are already operating nationwide and host churches or congregations or faith communities provide space for up to 14 individuals, usually about 4 to 5 families, where they can spend the night. And they come into the facility at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They are provided meals and they dine together and stay overnight in the facility, and then in the morning after breakfast, the 14 individuals are transported to the day center. And then the children are bused to school, to their own schools, and the parents and any preschoolers stay in the day center where they are given support by a case manager who helps them connect with services in the community that can help them get back on their feet. So it's a wonderful way of using host congregations, a day center, and accessing services that already exist in the community to help people get back on their feet.
Mm-hmm. What do you need now the most where you are in the process? What could the community do to help move this along?
Well, we need many volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
We need 13 host congregations so that people can volunteer in a host congregation to serve the families. And each congregation acts as a host for a week. And then that opportunity to serve moves to another congregation. So there are 13 host congregations who take turns hosting the families, and they each do that 4 times a year, and that takes the 52 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll need people to volunteer to support the host congregations that will be stepping up to do this. We need to identify the host congregations who will serve in this way. I think they've estimated that typically when a host congregation steps up to serve, it takes around 35 to 40 volunteers for that host congregation to meet the needs during their week of service. Mm-hmm. So that's a lot of hands-on opportunity. And we also will be identifying support congregations so that other people can help with meeting the food needs or shelter needs. We'll be hiring somebody to staff the day center, but there will be volunteers there as well. We'll have an executive director for the day center and a case manager who will help with the all those case management needs and networking needs of the families that we're serving. Mm-hmm. We'll have a van, and we'll need to hire a van driver, but we'll also need volunteers then to serve on the teams that help us develop these programs. So in September, we'll be having a community meeting, September 15th, where we'll be inviting people from all congregations and public agencies. People all over town and the county are welcome to come to the September 15 meeting. And after that, we will be forming teams of people to help with host congregation recruitment, the purchase of a van, the identification and management of a day center, and fundraising. So there will be room for hundreds of volunteers to help.
Mm-hmm. I like the phrase you use, an opportunity to serve, because I think that, I mean, just in my experience as a volunteer, and I've seen it in others, that when we volunteer, we get connected with that part of ourselves that's compassionate, mm-hmm. And we like to see that about ourselves, and it's an opportunity to connect with people, mm-hmm. And to kind of break down barriers and break down stigma. And so the need for this many volunteers, like for example, the Project Homeless Connect is a one-day event that community does, mm-hmm. and it just is transformative for so many people because it breaks down those class barriers.
Mm-hmm. Right, for the volunteers as well as all the guests that can come and attend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so with the Family Promise, usually the model is that affiliates start as their own nonprofit, but you guys are already a nonprofit, so that seems to be a benefit. It seems like you have the infrastructure, it might happen more quickly. Mm-hmm. What does the Family Promise National Office think of this? Do they see it as an opportunity, or are they a little hesitant? Or?
Well, I think at the very beginning they were a bit hesitant, mm-hmm. but I think now they're very exciting. We've already, the resources provided by the national office to try to help bring this model to our community are very powerful. And we've already had 2 people from the national office come, and we had already had some meetings with clergy from different faith communities, and we had over 24, I believe, faith communities mm-hmm. already come. And I think that's because already there are congregations that are involved with Interfaith Coalition, and people want to do more. They really do, yet they want to try to figure out how they can do that and how they can do that efficiently. So one of the exciting things is Family Promise came just over a year ago to Skagit County. So we've had a model so close by, and also just more people in the community have heard about it. And really heard that it works, and it's a cost-effective way to serve families. And again, that it's such a valuable way that people, volunteers, can do something meaningful that'll make a difference.
Well, this has been wonderful. I really appreciate you both coming here to share about that. And I always end this show by asking what your favorite thing to do in Bellingham is. I didn't prepare you for that, but...
Well, I guess I would just say, my favorite thing is Lake Padden.
Lake Padden.
I love to walk around Lake Padden, and I just got a puppy, 6 months or so. I have a very active black lab puppy, and so we've discovered the off-leash dog paths at Lake Padden. So honestly, Lake Padden is just a treasure, from swimming for dog owners, for picnics. So that's probably one of my favorite things to do.
Wonderful. How about you, Barbara?
I love all the hiking and biking opportunities around the county. And would say last night I was down at Bellwether on the Bay. Our waterfront is so gorgeous, and the way we use the waterfront here to host all kinds of family activities and musical events. I love it, and it's so beautiful.
Well, thank you for coming and joining us today and sharing about it, and the best of luck with Family Promise.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for joining us at Bellingham Voices, and hope to see you next time. Take care.
Oh, but that'd be confusing because I said last night it was at Bellingham.